I'm doing the things that I was doing in my 20s and 30s that worked. I'm eating healthy. I'm going to the gym. My body's not responding. And to tell people, just try harder, eat less calories, that can actually be very detrimental. It's not that these people are having a lack of effort or they're not trying. And this is really where GLPs can really fit in to aid in the weight loss process.
Welcome to the Retreat Radio, where we go beyond temporary fixes and surface level symptom management. Here, we dig into the real root causes behind your symptoms so that you can understand your body, advocate for your health, and ask the right questions. I'm Heather Witt, physician assistant and owner of the Retreat Wellness and Aesthetics. This podcast sits at the intersection of aesthetics, longevity, and functional medicine, and you'll get information without the sugarcoating, the trends, or the nonsense fluff. Let's get into it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Retreat Radio. Today, I kind of want to expand a little bit on the whole ideology that taking a GLP is cheating. And what I really want to focus on is what is really happening physiologically in the body when we start to have trouble with losing weight, and then talk just a little bit on how a GLP can really fit into this and help out with that. So let's just jump right in. Let's not waste any more time. So there are a lot of reasons why somebody may be overweight or why somebody may have trouble losing weight. But what I really want to focus on today is kind of that patient who, as you go through life and you age and you get into midlife, you start to see that not necessarily are you super morbidly obese or super overweight, but that you are having trouble getting back to the same way that you were in your 20s or in your 30s, or you're finding that what you were doing in the past is just not working anymore. As we start to get older, and especially for women, as we start to go through perimenopause and menopause, all of the systems in our body that regulate how weight is manipulated in the body definitely changes. So hormones start to shift, muscle mass starts to decline, our bone density declines, insulin sensitivity declines, we start to get more visceral fat around the organs inside of our body, our sleep patterns change. And all of this can really contribute to weight change fluctuations and difficulty with losing weight. So all of these changes that occur, it doesn't make it impossible to lose weight, but it definitely changes the landscape of it and changes how we need to approach it. And so sometimes just diet and exercise alone, or just trying harder, which everybody tells you, is just not going to work anymore. And this is really where, in my opinion, GLPs can really fit in. And they can really help to support changing some of these physiological properties that are happening in the body to aid in the weight loss process. And again, just as I said last time, not to act as a magic pill, but to aid as a piece to the puzzle. So I hear the same frustration all the time. I hear it in my clinic. I hear it from friends and family. I hear it from fellow gym goers, and I experienced it with myself, in that I'm doing all the right things. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing the things that I was doing in my 20s and 30s that worked. I'm eating healthy. I'm watching my calories. I'm eating protein. I'm going to the gym. I'm doing different types of workouts, but my body's not responding. Things aren't changing. The scale isn't moving. I'm not growing muscle. And oftentimes they just hear, once again, well, try harder, eat less, go to the gym more, just sleep more. And it's not that these people are having a lack of effort or they're not trying or they're expecting some miracle out of this. It's that they become very frustrated with, I'm doing these things these people are telling me, but it's not working. And they get extremely frustrated because nobody has taken the time to explain to them these things that are changing in their body that are actually making it harder for them, and that it's not anything that they're doing wrong. So the first thing I want to hit on is hormones and visceral fat. So for hormones more specifically, especially for females, estrogen. So as we age and our estrogen starts to decline, or even starts to do kind of that teeter-totter yo-yo effect, it's not going to make weight loss impossible, but it definitely changes the landscape. And it changes how our body stores fat. So no longer are we storing it around the hips and the thighs, kind of what gives us our nice womanly curves. But instead, it starts shifting it toward the abdomen and around the organs, so creating more and more of that visceral fat. And when you have increased visceral fat, metabolically, this changes our body. So We start to develop insulin resistance. Our body is not able to regulate blood glucose levels anymore because we start becoming resistant to the insulin our body is giving off. We start to get chronic inflammation in the body. We can start to have shifts and changes in our cholesterol levels and start to creep up and get abnormal levels. It can start to lead to mild cardiovascular changes, which can eventually lead to cardiovascular disease or blood pressure issues. And then all of this can all lead to, down the road, if left untreated, type 2 diabetes. And so this is why a lot of times, women, although they're not really noticing much change in total poundage on a scale, they definitely start noticing those body composition changes. And this is where that additional frustration comes in, is they say, well, my weight seems to be the same as it was 10 years ago, but I look different and I feel different and things aren't sitting how they used to be. And like I said, they don't really have an explanation for this. The next one I want to talk about is muscle mass and generalized metabolism. So your muscle, and I'm sure you've heard this in all this wellness craze going on, muscle, muscle, muscle. It is one of the most important things for longevity and health, again, especially for women. It's one of our main sites for storing glucose in the body. So as we age, naturally, muscle mass is going to decline if you don't keep it up. And so when you have less muscle mass, your body has less tissue available to store glucose. So your glucose levels start to increase, which requires more insulin. And as you output more insulin, you can start to get insulin sensitivity issues, and this can start to worsen. Your resting energy expenditure starts to change because, again, that decreased muscle mass. And in general, fat gain becomes easier because the less muscle you have, the less fat you can burn. So this is why on our GLP programs, we always want to keep up that muscle mass, because the more muscle you gain throughout your program, when you go off the medication, that muscle that you have built is going to help you to actually burn your own fat naturally. So as this declines, we start to accumulate more and more fat. And with all of these things combining, your weight loss obviously just gets harder and harder to maintain. So it doesn't necessarily mean that your metabolism is completely broken. It just means, once again, your circumstances have changed. And so we need to make appropriate changes to the physiology of our body to account for that, to get us back on track. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about what insulin resistance can actually lead to. So we already talked a little bit about the importance of insulin, and that basically when we eat something, our glucose levels go up, our pancreas releases insulin to help to bring that down and control that. And as we age and as we tax this system, that sensitivity our body has to responding to that insulin can change and can go down. So basically, even though somebody could have a normal blood glucose level or a hemoglobin A1C, which measures the average blood glucose levels over 3 months, you could still have a very elevated insulin level because it's requiring more and more insulin from your pancreas to keep that level controlled. And that is not a good thing. So when we have these insulin sensitivity issues, what this can lead to, if left unchecked, is increased hunger. So there actually is a physiological process in your body that makes you get hungrier and hungrier and not be able to control this as you age. It can cause energy crashes. It can cause more abdominal fat, that visceral fat that we talked about, to accumulate versus other areas on the body. It can cause your triglycerides, which is part of your lipid panel, your cholesterol panel that we run, can cause those to go up, which can worsen your cardiovascular health. It can give you stronger food or sugar cravings, and it can give you greater difficulty with assessing stored fat. So one of the main drivers of insulin resistance or insulin sensitivity issues is menopause and perimenopause, but it's not the only cause. Sleep loss, or just not sleeping well in general genetics, stress, again, that increased visceral fat, muscle loss, medications. Do you see how a lot of these things are overlapping? A lot of these things we just keep talking about again and again and again, because everything is correlated and all of these things come together, which then can cause the problem at hand. The next one I want to talk about is sleep. And sleep is one of those lifestyle things that I talk about constantly with my patients. But it's also one of those things that a lot of people think is kind of like hogwash, like, oh, whatever. Like, is sleep really going to affect my health that much? I've been sleeping for 6 or 7 hours my whole life and I'm fine. But what people don't really realize is that the things that sleep can really affect with the processes in your body are oftentimes things that we can't feel or like aren't tangible. We can't necessarily measure or feel happening to us. They actually alter how your cells operate within your body. And so sleep is one of the number one things that I tell people to address. And if you just get a little bit of sleep, you will start to see some improvement in some of these areas of your life. But when we're talking about the aging portion of this, as we age, as women, we go through, again, perimenopause and menopause. And it has been studied and proven that sleep does change during this time. And so when we get this disruption in sleep and we get hot flashes and night sweats and anxiety and things that don't allow us to calm our brains down. For men, sleep apnea, that starts to increase as you age. Changes in our progesterone levels, all of these things will start to affect your sleep. And so just telling someone, get more sleep, is not always going to work, right? There is something going on in their body that is preventing them from getting a good night's rest. And when we are not getting enough sleep, some of the things specifically related to what we're talking about today that can change are, again, this can increase your hunger signals. This can worsen your insulin sensitivity. This can reduce energy expenditure and exercise performance. It can lead to lack of motivation to actually get yourself to the gym. And it can increase, again, those sugar or those food cravings. So again, this is why just sleep more or just eat less, it actually becomes harder and harder to sustain over time because things are happening and changing in your body that are actually physically making it impossible for you to achieve this. So this kind of leads me into my main point with this on why just trying harder or why restriction or more restriction is not always the answer. So yes, creating a caloric deficit is going to cause weight loss. However, as we've already discussed, just simply cutting more calories is not always the answer. There are things happening in your body that are preventing these things from working anymore. And by living by the principle of, well, you just need to cut more calories, you just need to go to the gym more, this can actually create a very unhealthy weight loss culture and can actually lead to overuse or misuse of weight loss programs. So when you are aggressively restricting either calories or it's not necessarily restricting, but you're being aggressive in that you're overtraining at the gym, this can lead to muscle loss, which we've already talked about is going to be detrimental to this. We want to focus on fat loss, not muscle loss. It can lead to fatigue. It can lead to increased hunger. It can lead to poor workout performance, as we've already talked about. It can lead to food obsession. So obsessing over your calories, obsessing over what you're putting into your body. And this can often lead to a lot of eating disorders, binging and restricting cycles, anorexia, bulimia. And then after all of this, you may be successful in your weight loss journey, but inevitably it usually leads to weight regain. So any plan that you put in place, as restrictive as it can be, you likely could potentially lose some weight. However, this is going to be very incompatible with your daily social life and a more long-term plan that you can actually incorporate into your lifestyle. So if you're restricting so much that you don't even want to go to your friends' birthday parties anymore because you know that they're going to go to some restaurant in town and you're not going to be able to find anything on the menu. If you are no longer, having that barbecue in your backyard for 4th of July because you love celebrating with your family because you're going to be too tempted. If you're giving up the one little cocktail you like to have at dinner when you go out at night because that's going to make you regain all of your weight and it's too many calories. This is something that you can usually restrict for about 3 months, lose some weight, and maybe look really great. But is this something that you can really sustain lifelong? And what our goal with weight loss is to provide people with the tools necessary to create a plan that works for them to lose weight in a healthy way and maintain that weight loss for years and years to come. And not only focus on weight loss, but focus on the other health benefits that can be achieved by losing that excess weight. And so this is where I think that something like a GLP-1 can come in and help with this. Again, not to be the one-all answer, but again, to aid in some of these physiological changes that are happening. So let's dive a little bit into what a GLP-1 actually is doing for us and what it's actually doing in each area of the body. So let's just take semaglutide, just the good old standard GLP-1. So GLP-1 is actually a naturally occurring hormone that our body already produces. And so what GLP-1 does for our body when we then supplement it to have more of it in our body is, number one, it works a lot in the pancreas. So this is going to help increase insulin release when we have elevated glucose in our body. And so what we see with a lot of the GLP use is we see an immense improvement in insulin sensitivity, which, as you've heard me mention multiple times already in today's episode, is one of the main drivers of this difficulty with weight loss. In the liver and also still in the pancreas, GLP-1 also reduces inappropriate glucagon signaling. So this can help to reduce excessive glucose release from your liver. So this is also going to aid in helping with this weight loss. In the GI tract, GLP-1 binds to help low gastric emptying. So when you eat something, instead of it being digested and running through your digestive tract super quickly, it actually remains in your stomach for longer, keeps you feeling fuller and more satisfied for longer, aiding in that ability to eat less calories without feeling so hungry in between. In the brain, it does a lot of work in the brain, and it works with a lot of neurotransmitter signaling that affects hunger, how hungry you feel, satiety, when and how long you feel full. It gives you that food reward. It kind of helps to bring that back. So a lot of people struggle with that. They're not even hungry. They just love eating food and it just makes them happy. It helps to reduce cravings. It helps reduce impulsive eating. And it really kind of turns down that volume knob on food noise. And so really when we're talking about what we're trying to do with a GLP-1, we're not trying to, a lot of people think we're just trying to eliminate hunger so that you just don't eat and you just starve yourself. It makes it easier to starve yourself. That is not at all what we are trying to do. But a lot of what happens with these physiological changes and with aging is that hunger signal and the amount of food we're eating, that dial gets turned up and it gets to an inappropriate level. So these medications help us to realize more quickly when we are actually full and satisfied, and helps our body to process that food a lot better and help us to more appropriately feel those hunger and satiety signals much, much better. So in kind of wrapping all of this up, again, I really want to hone in on the point of as we age and our body goes through these changes, we can see these properties that happen within our body that physically make it more difficult to lose weight. And that just simply, using the same methods that we did when we were younger just aren't going to necessarily work anymore. And to tell people, okay, well then just try harder, go to the gym more, eat less calories, that can actually be very detrimental. So I think if we start looking at GLP-1s as not a weight loss drug, but as a drug that can help to treat all of these other physiological properties that are happening and changing in the body and improving those, that then those things lead to better weight loss and weight maintenance, that is where we can see that using these in a healthy and correct way can be a really great tool in weight loss management and are being used just the same as we would use any other medication to treat something going wrong in the body. So I really just hope, as a society, as we grow and learn more and more about these medications, that we can really start to shy away from really putting people down and shaming them into using these medications as a tool to aid them in this process. So I hope that this was very informative for you. And if you guys have any questions, as always, please reach out to us. And I cannot wait to see you on next week's episode of The Retreat Radio.
The information shared on this podcast is for educational purposes only. It reflects clinical experience and opinion and is not intended to serve as a diagnosis, treatment plan, or medical advice. As always, please consult with a qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your health, medications, or treatment plan. If you want to be a part of our community, make sure to follow us on Instagram at theretreat.wellness and theretreat.aesthetics. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with me today, and until next time.